I don't want to talk about it. Hell, how can you describe how your most beautiful dream becomes your worst nightmare?
Welcome back to Visited by Voices Live. Hey, Sam, how long has it been since we've done this? Like 3 or 4 months?
It feels like it, but I haven't known you 3 months. And definitely not 4, if we're going by the rules of numbers and math.
I think clocks are all deceiving us anyway.
Just like birds, they don't really exist. They're just sent to spy on us by the government.
Only some birds, not all of them.
Clocks.
Well, hummingbirds are definitely machines, right?
Yeah, well, they have to be.
The world's oldest drones. How have you been?
I've just been over here having insomnia for the last 11 days as I slowly taper off my anti-anxiety meds because kids, please don't go cold turkey off your anti-anxiety meds. It's very not safe. So I'm on my 1/4 milligram every day, and hopefully I'll be able to get off of that completely within the next month or so. We'll see.
Well, you need to sleep before a month or so, though.
I'm hoping I do, but you know what? It's freed up a lot of my time, like that I would spend sleeping for doing things like watching shows I haven't seen and other assorted horror movies.
That sounds an awful lot like a segue.
Maybe. What did you watch? What have you been watching lately?
So I went back to the theater, which I never stopped going to the theater, so it's not really going back. It's like I was still at the theater, and I saw a film called Roddy, the Most Dangerous By, which means your most wanted brother, and which is a really craptacular action film from India. It stars Salman Khan from Race 3, which is my favorite guilty pleasure action film of all time. If you've not seen Race 3, it is the most absurd thing ever. It makes a Fast and Furious film look positively boring. Yeah, it's like if you handed a kid with ADD a bunch of actors and said, make a film.
So McG, basically.
No, way beyond that.
That's an insult.
I mean, you have to see it to believe it, but all I can say is like you can't believe it once you've seen it either. And there's lots of really ridiculous musical interludes, so it's the full Monty of Indian entertainment.
Is it like absurd in the way that Shoot 'em Up is absurd?
Again, you're thinking too shallow.
Okay, fair enough.
This movie is Race 3 is probably one of the most surreal experiences I've ever had in a movie theater. I was laughing so hard, and it was like the audience around me were from a different background, one more appropriate probably for showing up the film, and they seemed to be having a different experience than I was. But I didn't care because I was just so in love with the movie for being this wonderfully absurd film.
Was it like a fresh, like drink of fresh, like cold water?
You know. I mean, I watch a lot of Indian cinema, and the reason is because their films still feel like they were made by human beings, and they don't feel like they've been test marketed into the ground before they get to the theater. They actually feel like something, and as a result, I feel things. And yeah, I get it. It's not for everyone, and some people are gonna absolutely respond badly. But for me, most of what I see come out of Hollywood just doesn't make me feel anything, and that's like the worst thing ever. We're in this horrible period for domestic filmmaking, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's just Hollywood in general. I don't think most people in Hollywood can feel. Not just because of the plastic surgery, but I'm sure most of them are sociopaths anyway.
Well, you'd think that might create some interesting entertainment, but apparently it's the wrong kind of sociopaths, right?
Yeah, it's the boring ones. Maybe it's just because they're dumb sociopaths. Like, they're not smart enough to have empathy. I wouldn't think that that there would be a Venn diagram for that where those overlap in any way, but maybe if you're too stupid to have empathy.
DJ Donnelly already has a question for you, so we'll just jump to that. He asks, if you met Freddy in your dreams, what would you say to him? Keep in mind, you have to be asleep for that to happen, so at the moment, that's not a worry.
Yeah, also, I have a cup full of coffee, so that helps. What would I say? I'd probably be like, are you burned literally everywhere? I'd want to know.
Wow, that got personal.
I know. It's a weird thing. But sort of, like in Wes Craven's New Nightmare, he's wearing leather pants. That can't feel good on burns. Unless it's just all the nerves are dead, but entirely possible.
Is Dream Aloe a thing?
Well, they have, I'm sure you can think up an aloe plant in your dreams. So, yes, I'm going to say Dream Aloe is a thing.
I think what that series needed to do is during one of the films, just at random, don't explain it, don't set it up, just suddenly it intersects with both Dreamscape and Exorcist II: The Heretic. Because all those films have like this concept that you can share dreams. Just have all those characters show up at the same time.
Yeah, that would be bizarre.
I think that 79 Linda Blair in a Coke Days would be an amazing thing in a Nightmare on Elm Street film.
I mean, who knows? She may have had a Nightmare on Elm Street as a dream at some point. As you can see, guys, I'm very tired. But
also, how did that series also not get around to eventually making a Kennedy assassination reference, considering, he died on Elm Street?
I didn't even know that. I'm not well versed on my Kennedy conspiracies, so.
Robert Englund was on the grassy knoll. So if you have questions,
speaking of assassinations, we need to talk about Spiral. Did you see it?
I did see it.
Okay, I don't understand what I just watched.
Okay.
Like, I just watched it. I just finished it. Probably a couple hours ago.
Okay.
Are
you a fan of the franchise?
Moderately, I think. I mean, I'm not a diehard fan, although I did pick up the Amazon had a 7 DVD set. The first 7, obviously, not like
just random 7,
and then randomly Jigsaw, but no 7. No, so they had it on sale.
That might not be a bad thing.
I didn't see. That's the thing. I've seen like 1, 3, 5, and then that's it. I've seen 2 as well. But I just, so I picked it up at Amazon for $7.50. So it's like now I can, go through and rewatch everything. I do like the original Saw. But this movie was it was like a Bad Boys movie. It was just like it was just an action movie with a serial killer in it. So it was basically like Silence of the Lambs, I guess.
It's definitely a side story.
Considered a horror movie. So.
Well, it's still a horror film.
Yeah.
I definitely think it falls in the emotional range of a horror film. Well, Silence is definitely a horror film too. So, but I would say that it's definitely a side story. It's not part of the main continuity, although it doesn't discount anything that happened in the previous films. I think that's where this series just needs to be, though. I mean, I love it for being overly complex. If you're keeping the characters and their interrelationships, separate in your head, but I know most people were just at their wits' end by the end of that series trying to keep it all straight. They just gave up. It's like, I don't know, there's a note they found and there's a box and this character used to be married to this character and this person might still be alive. This one definitely isn't. But then you find out there's whatever. There's notes and bodies and tapes and bodies and no one was keeping track except for those of us who found it absolutely fascinating.
I think that's the cool part, though.
Yeah, the series had a reputation of being just about the traps and the gore scenes, but it was actually, like I always say, it's horror's big, dark soap opera. Because that's what it was. It was like every year you went back to the theater, you caught up with your characters, and it got more convoluted. And I loved that.
Until weird. I mean, later I'm going to have to talk about Hannibal later on, but that's kind of how I felt watching that series.
The only film that I think I really didn't have as much fun as I wanted to in that series, well, the 5th film, because it's pointless, because nothing happens in that movie. It's just a film that bridges 2 other sequels. And then the final chapter, 7, is just man, that thing, the sound stages look like sound stages. The CGI looks bad. It's definitely, it lost all the luster for me that the previous films kind of had. But I'm glad. Listen, I'm glad Saw exists. I'm glad they went for it, and I liked Spiral a lot actually. I think that it's a better move than what they did with Jigsaw, which just felt kind of repetitive to what had gone before.
I can see where you'd think, yeah, Jigsaw does feel a bit repetitive. For me, when I first saw it, I just caught it on Hulu, and I hadn't seen a Saw movie, which everybody hates to say that, seen or see a Saw movie. But I hadn't seen one in so long. I liked that feeling. But at the same time, sort of just, you do have to recognize that we're still doing the same thing. So, I mean, Chris Rock is just doing a great job. He's Chris Rocking it up over there. I thought he was the best part of the movie, but it's hard not to like him in a lot of stuff that he does. I don't think I really dislike him in anything. I just, for me, I think it was just the atmosphere of the movie, and also it was so telegraphed right at the beginning. It was just really obvious. So
oh, absolutely. But I think that was a little bit of a relief to me. Like, as soon as I was like, okay, that's where this is going as far as who the villain is, I didn't have to worry about like trying to predict a twist or something. It was just, okay, let's see how this plays, and let's see how. I wouldn't have minded if the villain had come forward much earlier in the film and we were fully aware of who it was. I wouldn't have changed the film all that much for me.
Yeah.
And I think it had. Listen, the film actually was about something. It was about police corruption, but it did something very smart in that by taking the racial component out of it, race was not the reason for the corruption. By taking that out of it, you could actually say something about the issue without it becoming just emotional, right? You could kind of detach kind of the standard emotions and talk about, like, sometimes best intentions lead to the worst in people.
Yeah.
Without giving anything away.
Oh, come on, guys. You know where you can go to find spoilers on Saw. Yeah. Don't act like any of this is a surprise to you.
Yeah. But
somebody's already come across them anyway.
I'm just thinking that it's a smarter film. Than it probably needs to be. It's small. All the Saw films are small. I wouldn't want a big Saw movie. But that said, I'm glad they're out there, and if I get to visit that universe every 3 years or something from here on out, I'll do it for the foreseeable future until it becomes a drag to do so. Which, I'm not a big fan of those 35 and 40-year-old horror franchises continuing. We'll get there with Saw, but at this point, it's 20 years old. I'm still good for a little while.
I still feel extremely old hearing that.
I know.
It hasn't been 20 years yet. It's not 2024 yet.
We're getting there. We're getting there fast.
Good Lord. But, I mean, I do like that it did have a plot going, rather than being part of a continuing soap opera. There was a contained story. I didn't really feel like Chris Rock's character got an arc, though. So it's so close, but it's not quite there yet. Almost. So that wasn't,
I'm not sure. You see, first of all, just transparency. I think people get hung up on the acceptable rules of drama. Like, oh, your protagonist always has to have an arc where they learn something that they previously didn't know about themselves. Yeah, there's so many examples where that does not play. And there's so many examples where the writers do that, and then it's just robotic, Okay, I set up these things so I can have an arc rather than tell a convincing story. I think the character, I think in small ways has several small arcs during the course of it. But I would agree that that's not really the point of the film.
No, I might actually go back and watch it again after I get through the first 8, since this wasn't I would have liked to time it better, but I had just gotten my DVDs in yesterday, so time was of the essence. Also, I might have gotten a bad transfer that I saw in Spiral. So, question is, I might be crazy. I don't know if it's like just on the transfer itself that I saw, or this is in the actual movie as well. But there's a sequence where it seems like there's an overlay of another of the torture scenes happening, or the trap scenes happening. Did you have that, or am I
like a flashback of all the previous traps at the end of the film?
No, it was like not quite midway. It was a little bit
earlier
on.
There is a moment. There is a moment where he flashes back briefly to and a lot of people are saying, well, he didn't experience those, so, but whatever. I mean, Hills Have Eyes 2 has a dog flashback. At this point, I think we have to pick our battles.
Well, this was sort of like a movie on top of the movie itself, and I was very confused by that. So maybe that's only in the Indian release. Who knows?
I don't know.
I saw an Indian movie too this week.
Sort of.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I should have actually said that I saw Spiral as well, because I did in the theater as well, but I just wanted to make sure I talked about the big dumb action film first. I also saw Wrath of Man.
Okay.
Which is a American-British co-production big dumb action film with Jason Statham in it.
We have the same birthday.
It was fine for the first 2/3. In fact, I'd say it was great for the first 2/3, and then the final act really is a bunch of nonsensical crap. It thinks it's really, really satisfying, but it's not.
You're asking a lot from a Jason Statham movie, and I love it.
Well, it was Jason Statham directed by Guy Ritchie. So, first of all, that probably shouldn't happen. That probably means that we are living in some kind of alternate reality where we think we're the main timeline. But, I wouldn't say it's a great film in the end, because that final act is just a mess. I mean, a mess. And that had a sequence. That film has a character who is never referred to by their name, so you're guessing who the character is for the whole film, except that it's the most obvious person. Again, it's worse than Spiral about how obvious it is. It's like ridiculously obvious. But
oh my god!
But the first half of that film is really, really, really great, and then it starts to lose steam. And then when it goes into the third act, it just falls the fuck apart. But yeah. Laundry wants to know feelings on the Paranormal Activity films, because she was listening to the green room
apparently. Like, damn, dude. Yeah, so no, we were just busy shitting on those before the show started. Fuck Paranormal Activity. They suck. Fight me.
I'm not gonna fight that. Paranormal Activity is it's not my thing at all. I get very frustrated. I have not seen all of them. I don't think I've seen half of them, because I'd get bitten and I'd be like, I'm not gonna do that, and then 2 would come out, and then I'd be like, I'd find myself with friends and we'd go to see the 4th film after that or whatever, and I'd walk out and say never again, and then the films land.
I love the movie Amnesia.
You just always think like, well, it can't be as bad as before, right? They have to have figured it out by now, right? They've made so much money.
Yeah, I think maybe, I didn't watch the Paranormal Activity movies in theaters, but I probably did that with the Saw movies. Like, oh yeah, I'm going to go see the new Saw movie. Why do I keep doing this? And again, it's not like I hate the Saw movies, but sometimes I wonder, like, why do I keep going to see these in the theater? They don't need the money that badly.
Well, Saw and Paranormal Activity were competing at the box office for that Halloween money for 2 years, and Paranormal Activity ultimately won.
But the subsequent movies after that, it's the sequels become watered down, and then you go see Saw whatever the fuck, and then you come out of it and you're like, why did I do that? I think that's the only movie series I've done that with that I can think of off the top of my head.
Listen. I was in the theater for the very brief window that Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the beginning, or the next generation. It was called The Return of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre when I saw it. Was in like 12 screens in America. And I walked out of that screen and went, never again. And yet I've gone back for every single one since. So.
Of course you have.
Ooh, Cliff Booth.
I knew you were going to see that one.
Oh, yeah. Right down my sweet spot. Right? How do you like The Old Dark House, 1932? I love The Old Dark House. It's not merely a Karloff vehicle either, though. He's awesome as the drunk butler who might start a lot of fires and kill people. It's such a great sadistic little comedy. Is it? Are we supposed to be laughing? I don't know. There's times when I'm grinning all the way through it, and there's times when I'm absolutely cringing because it's like really mean-spirited. And it reminds me a lot of the Karloff Lugosi film, the Black Cat, in that regard. In that it's like it's meaner than it needs to be, but that film also wants you to laugh, so it's fun. Have you seen it, Sam?
No, I sure haven't.
It was remade very mediocrely by Hammer in the 60s.
Haven't seen any Hammer movies either. I am a very shallow pool of horror movies.
So you're telling me that you've seen Dracula, Sovereign of the Damned, but you haven't seen any of the Hammer Dracula films?
It's only because you made me watch it.
That's true. I have to pick more important things for you to be forced to watch, I guess. I think it's self-indictment.
I need to see more things. It's helpful if you make me do these things. I wanted to ask if you saw Saint Maud.
I love Saint Maud.
Okay.
I know we're going to fight, so go for it.
No, I was actually like, I mean, I don't have a problem with the movie itself, not especially. I think it's good, and I think, you should go watch it and make your own conclusions about what you think. Because it is beautifully shot, and it's extremely well acted. There's nothing wrong with the writing. I'm fine with it. It just, I think for me, it just didn't. It's just a kind of, it was just a story about a crazy girl that didn't have her, that never got proper treatment. And I mean, yes, that is frightening. But it seems like when you put the religious horror veneer over it, it's something just didn't click for me. And I just think it's, I feel like it's a genuine story. Whoever, I don't remember. I don't know if Rose Glass also wrote it in addition to directing it. But it's a genuine story, and there's a lot of heartfelt emotion behind it. The story just isn't for me.
I think that's really a legitimate way to navigate through the film, but that's the whole point. It's a really dense examination of obsession, and how as your feelings of self-worth diminish, those obsessions in your life, religion just happens to be Maud's obsession. It could have been anything. How anything, no matter what it starts as, becomes pernicious as your self-worth decreases. And I think that the scene where she goes to the bar after having a crisis of faith is it's so important as a storytelling beat and so brave as a storytelling beat, because it shows like how she could just as quickly have turned to a different obsession to try and build up that self-worth. The whole idea of like, I'm the special one in God's eyes could just as easily be, I'm the girl who can land any guy in this bar. And I think it's also great because you see the fading movie star, right? And so you see someone who was important and is now kind of pathetic because of where they are in life through no fault of their own, or maybe somewhat through their attitude. And it's an interesting juxtaposition of two people both struggling for relevance at different stages of decay. And one is a physical decay, one is a mental decay. I think it's a great film of parallels, and I think it's powerful. I think that it also really hits me in, again, all my sweet spots, because I think religion is a really ripe subject for horror films.
Absolutely.
Because it's the one place where the supernatural in our polite society is completely accepting. Everywhere else, it's like the supernatural is relegated to the sidelines or openly mocked. But when you bring up it in a religious connotation, everyone immediately gives it reverence, and
Yeah.
that's fascinating by itself. But horror films can do so much with that, and I think Maud does, for a very personal story.
Yeah, that's that's the tone that I got, and I think it's just my general. I guess I feel very jaded by religious horror as a subgenre, and it's never really hit me that much anyway. It's not that I mean, I wouldn't call myself a religious person. I'm more spiritual, because if I tried to take the time to actually explain my belief system, it'd be 5 hours later, and you still wouldn't have any idea what the fuck I'm talking about. Seriously. And so, I mean, for me, like, I've been to Catholic school. I went there for 2 years. I wasn't Catholic, so, didn't really mean a lot. I was kind of only there because it was a private school. I went to Lutheran school for 5 years, and, I was baptized, and we never went to church. So, again, this is all stuff I kind of had on the sidelines. It wasn't a giant part of my life. And I think because of that, that's why I lack that connection to the religious horror genre. I do feel like there are ideas out there that we could be exploring more of. Just like we could explore something with Abraxas and Gnosticism, because basically it's like, oh, God versus the devil. We have those opposites right there. Oh, let me speak to your manager,
Yeah, exactly.
And then you could do something with the Codex Gigas, which that's a bizarre story in and of itself. So I feel like the scope is a little limited, but I'm not gonna crucify Saint Maud for that.
Wow.
I had to get that off my chest, I think, because I don't want people to get the wrong idea that I hate Saint Maud, because I do hate most things. It was just I liked the movie. Just maybe the religious horror aspect just isn't for me as a person, and that's okay. Not everything has to be for me.
It's funny because I never, ever, ever in my life from DNA, from the collision of cells, I never believed in anything supernatural or spiritual, ever. But yet, I would say that religious horror might be one of my favorite subgenres. And listen, I lay that all at William Peter Blatty's feet.
Absolutely.
Huge fan. No one does characters or dialogue better. I was lucky enough to spend a little bit of time with the man, so that certainly helps too. It's the same way if you see a movie in a movie theater, you like it a little bit better than if you see it on your couch. When you get to spend some time with someone that's a hero, usually helps. But I think that it's just that I'm fascinated by what people believe when I can't believe it.
Yeah.
I think that's really powerful to me. Not that's going to change my mind, right? Because I'd need like proof. That's who I am. That's just not going to happen for me. I'm not going to have my road to Damascus experience. I'm not. But that said, I'm fascinated by seeing like other people's reflections on these subjects, and to the point where it's like with my close friends, I'll debate some aspects of their belief versus my belief. But in general, I don't want to debate. I just want to hear what people believe, and if I have questions, I have questions. But it's not about changing anyone's mind, because I think the world is richer when people believe different things, as long as those different things don't involve killing me. That's where I draw lines.
Yeah, or small animals or children. You're just gonna like gloss over that. No, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm gonna just gloss. No, I'm not. I'm whatever. I think I saw Griffin's comment, and that just started. We're not gonna talk Jim Cameron at all. We're just not gonna talk about Jimmy. But
just
Jacob,
kick him out of the chat. It's fine.
No. We love Griffin. Alice, Sweet Alice, Candle for the Devil, Don't Torture a Duckling are all great religious horror films. Yeah, absolutely they are. I don't think it's limited to that, though. I think that even something as broad and prosaic as Prophecy, the Christopher Walken film, is a great example of religious horror. I think it works often. Where it doesn't work is when people just try and remake The Exorcist with digital effects. That's where religious horror really falls hard for me. I don't even mind when there's crutches involved. Like, okay, we don't know how to fix the story, so God fixes it. I don't have a problem with that. As long as it's built into that world, because the film world and our world are not really the same place. I don't like it when the rest of the writing is lazy as well, like all the Conjuring sequels. That's the problem. There isn't the cheesy religiosity; it's the rest of the movies as well.
Yeah. Did you ever see The Reaping with Hilary Swank? It was probably one of, if not the last Dark Castle film I can think of.
I know I have, and I know that remember nothing about it. Maybe you can dredge something up. But there was a period there where there was a bunch of those. There was a film called The Return that came out at that time, and none of those films stuck with me at all. But I know I saw it. I think I saw it in the theater in Easton.
I think it was probably in the mid-aughts. It did have that glossy mid-aughts look to it, like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Yeah, it's 2007. Yeah. A former Christian missionary who specializes in debunking religious phenomena. Well, now I have to wait for IMDb to load. Awesome. Investigates a small town which seems to be suffering from the 10 biblical plagues.
I definitely saw it. I still definitely remember not a frame of it.
Oh, Griffin is saying that Splice and Bullet to the Head are the last two Dark Castle films.
Splice was a Dark Castle film?
I didn't know that. I really like Splice, even though it's horrifying.
I do like that film. It's the only film that David Cronenberg didn't make that's a David Cronenberg film, in my opinion.
I'm always here for an Adrian Brody movie.
And Bullet to the Head, that Stallone thing, right?
I definitely didn't see that.
Dark Castle was such a weird imprint. It's like they started off, we're going to remake all of the William Castle films. And it's like they get 3 films in, they just abandon that concept.
Okay. Yeah, I remember the first 2. Was it Gothica? Gothica was that included in there?
That was them, but that was their first non-William Castle adaptation. That was
okay.
So it was House on Haunted Hill.
Yeah.
There was 13 Ghosts, and there was Ghost Ship. Those are the 3 actual. And then after that, they started just doing anything.
Ghost Ship? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
Oh my god, my mom loves that movie so much. Like, she watches that movie as much as she watches Ever After with Drew Barrymore. It's a lot. It's a lot.
I hate to sound like the guy who's going to say what everyone else says, but I love the first 5 minutes of that movie, and the rest of it you can throw out a window.
No, I 100% agree. Yes, first 5 minutes, beautiful. I will watch the first 5 minutes on loop, but yeah, that movie is a slog.
You know what another film like that is? Darkness Falls. Mirrors is another good example of that.
Oh my god, Mirrors.
Oh, Mirrors.
Oh, Jesus.
Andrea Aja, I mean, what were you doing, my man? You make so much great stuff and you make that thing.
Yeah, Mirrors was a fucking that was a weird, wild ride. Not in a good way. I mean, it had a very cool death in I think it was Kiefer Sutherland's sister. The character's. Yeah. I can't remember his character's name.
Oh, no. There's no reason you would.
No, absolutely. I think I have some weird nostalgia for mid-aughts horror lately.
And Griffin is pointing out that I forgot House of Wax. I did forget House of Wax. And actually, but
oh my god.
House of Wax is pretty great.
Yeah.
So it's like, I like all 3 versions of that story. Mysteries in the Wax Museum, the original House of Wax, which I, for some reason, have a VHS copy of right here.
Just for no reason.
It happens. It's like you set it up for me. And I like the what everyone calls the what's the girl's name? I can't remember. Paris Hilton. Everyone calls it the Paris Hilton film, although she's not really in very much of that movie.
That's how I know, but that's how they promoted it. See Paris Die.
Yep. Yep. But I like all three versions of that story quite a lot. Jacob is asking, have either of you seen Deliver Us from Evil from 71 or Faults from 2014? I have seen Deliver Us from Evil. I've not seen Faults. I think we're missing a word in your comment because I'm not quite getting it. Faults is very in the way Yorgo Lanthimos films are. Oh, I think great is transposed. Faults is very great in the way that I'll check it out. I'll put it on my list. Unless you tell me in another comment that I am misreading your intentions and I should not say it.
It's called Faults for a reason. I'll be here all night or until the stream ends.
Wow.
Yeah.
And then hopefully you'll be asleep and dreaming of asking Freddie if he's burnt all over.
I know, right? I'm drinking coffee, so probably not right away.
I actually do not have caffeine. This is empty. I'm going to just use it as a prop so then I can make it look like I'm...
Make you look like one of the cool kids?
Yeah, because caffeine is kind of my thing. I have a sty growing in the side, so it's like that's driving me absolutely nuts at all times. And probably at some points I'm going to not just stumble over my words like I normally do, but I'll just be utterly distracted by the fact that every once in a while my eye goes all blurry.
Well, just easy with the caffeine. Otherwise, you'll get the twitch in the eye with the sty, and that's going to really piss you off.
Yeah, that's not why I'm not drinking. But so Griffin says the House of Wax director went on to direct a shit ton of Liam Neeson thrillers and The Shallows. I saw The Shallows in a totally empty theater. I saw The Shallows in theater. I don't remember if there was people there. I like that movie a lot. I really do. Although I do think the seagull should die. But
who was in The Shallows? I forget. I always get it confused with things like Open Water and 47 Meters Down.
Oh no, it's way better than both those movies.
Okay.
It's the girl who's married to the guy.
Oh no, that's super helpful. The gal that's married to Ryan Reynolds.
Yes, and you knew what I meant.
Lively.
Yes,
God,
and she's quite good in it. She's quite good in it, actually. Which is I haven't seen her in much, but she's good in it. I like that movie. In fact, I thought when that came out, I thought really that Universal should have bought that movie for distribution and just thrown the Jaws name on it. Because it would be no worse than any of the sequels. In fact, it would be better than most of the sequels, and maybe could have done some like business, which it didn't do.
I do like Blake Lively quite a bit as an actress. She was great in A Simple Favor with Anna Kendrick. There was a kind of not a horror movie, but a thriller. So it had a hint of Gone Girl to it in a way. But she was quite good in that, and I definitely recommend that movie for sure.
Here, do you want to take this?
Sup, Lauren? Who's the new chick? Is that your girlfriend? Probably not, since I'm married.
It would also be extremely long distance. Yeah,
and my husband's extremely tall, so I don't think that you'd take too kindly to that.
No, this is Sam Carlson. She has a great podcast called Chibi Jibis. You should definitely check it out, where they, with tongue firmly placed in cheek, address horror films and deep dives on every episode. It's pretty great. You should check it out.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. That book is fucked. I don't know what book we're talking about.
I'm not sure.
The Devil's Bible? Probably not.
And DJ, there is no point. It's for people who are delusional.
Yeah, that's true. As I think back to my previous long distance relationships.
He was just fucking with both of us after.
Nice.
Cool.
Good job, man.
Yeah.
Oh, A Simple Favor. Laundry says A Simple Favor is fucked up. It is fucked up. It's very entertaining, though, for sure. I haven't read the book, but now I want to.
Yeah, so they had an opportunity to remake Val Luton's Only Miss with Ghost Ship, and they wasted it. Yeah, yeah. That's definitely true. But I'll take a Val Luton miss pretty much over most of what comes out now. That's for damn sure.
Yeah. So
you watched Hannibal, is my understanding, the television series.
Everything. All of the Hannibal. All of the series. I watched it in a matter of maybe a weekend. I think it was a weekend and then some change. Since those are long episodes, and I really thought I was done with the series, and then it was like, no, this is just like the end of season 2. There was a whole other season that went right off the rails, and it was just, it's a very, like, big picture wise, it's a hot mess. And I had fun with it, but it is very soap opera-y. And there is, I think Mads Mikkelsen or Michelson, I'm probably mispronouncing it. It's probably Michelson, because I know somebody with a similar name. He's great as Hannibal. I think I have issues with mainly the fact that everybody is fairly irredeemable. They're, and I understand that is essentially the point, because in their interactions with Hannibal changes them. But Jack Crawford is probably the only one who has somewhat of, who still maintains a sense of integrity, even though he doesn't, because he does go along with a lot of Will's stupid ideas that get people killed. But I feel, I think that's kind of what's missing for me. Since between, in the movie, since between Hannibal and Clarice, we had the kind of the good and evil portions, but Hannibal's still, kind of seeing the humanity that he couldn't touch, right? Like seeing that her incorruptibility. But everybody's fucking corruptible in this show. Everybody. And like Frederick Chilton is getting like, he's a fucking zombie at this point. He, like, I swear to God, something happens to him in every season where I'm like, oh, he's dead. Oh no, he's back? Okay. Oh no, he's dead. Oh no, he's back again.
Well, spoilers, the real ending of the novel Hannibal, Clarice is completely corrupted.
Oh no, I know. I've read the book. And actually that brings me into another thought, since I haven't read literally all of Thomas Harris's books, just I read Red Dragon, Silence, Hannibal Rising. That was it.
I'm sorry about
there are others I am unaware. But what I was reminded of is that in the show, Dr. du Maurier, she kind of follows a trajectory that the Hannibal, book Hannibal Clarice follows, where she runs she goes with Hannibal, and she is corrupted. And then at the end of the series, which, hey guys, turn off this podcast if you don't want to be spoiled, you don't want to hear the end of Hannibal. The closing shot of the series is Dr. du Maurier sitting at a table that has a leg prepared on it. Like it's a roast leg. And then there's a close-up on her, and she cut off her own leg, and I guess she's eating it. So I'm thinking, is this how Clarice was meant to end? It's very strange. You have nothing to come back with that on.
Yeah, no, I have nothing to come back
to too. So it's just like, bruh.
I've not seen any of the television properties. I've seen all the films. I've read all the novels in the series, which you hit them. Don't worry, you're not missing out. But I would say that I'm done with it. Like, there's nothing more for me. So even if I had been deeply interested in Hannibal, I probably still wouldn't have watched it, simply because by the time we got to Hannibal Rising, as in the book, I felt was a nightmarishly bad novel, and clearly a cash-in. And the film they made from it was unwatchable. I just think I've gotten everything I need out of the Hannibal story. I'm done.
Yeah, I like I think the show had too much, like, there's too much Hannibal, and I love Hannibal, but there's too much Hannibal in this series, and that's kind of the thing that, you really went to the movies for, is you wanted to see Anthony Hopkins just really chew the scenery and perfect that performance. And you always wanted to kind of think about all the small things that he said as Hannibal, and just the slightest details, right, as to how he interacted with other characters, because there wasn't a lot to go off of. But this is just the Hannibal show, so I mean, literally,
the Hannibal show.
Yeah,
featuring guest starring.
Yeah.
Jess, if you do decide to wait till December, read it a chapter a day, just like the chapters tell you to. And thank you.
Oh, nice.
Someday we need to talk about Blue Eel, you and I, and I'll explain what happened during the editing of that book. Got a lot of mixed opinions going on here about Hannibal.
It's totally understandable, since I mean we've got essentially three different canons going.
Yeah. Rock Music Forever says, I saw the Maniac remake with Elijah Wood last week. Have you seen it, Lauren and Sam?
Nope, not yet.
I certainly did see it. I like that film a lot. When it was announced, I remember thinking, well, the original is just such a grimy grindhouse flick. How can it possibly be remade today? And the interesting thing is, the new one is completely what a grindhouse film would be if grindhouse existed as a legitimate form today. But since it doesn't, we just got to take that movie on faith that that's what it would look like. So I was fascinated by how well it worked. And obviously it is a remake because it takes very specific scenes verbatim, but it almost is so different just because of its approach is so different that it's better looked at as its own thing and celebrated as its own thing, rather than try and compare it, I think. I don't know. That's my take.
I'll have to check out both. I haven't seen either one.
Oh, you haven't seen the Joe Spinell original?
No.
Ooh, it's a nasty little piece of work. There's very few films I would throw the words misogynist at. That film is definitely misogynist. Yes, it has its kind of answer to the misogyny at the end of the film, but it definitely is a film that revels in what a psychopath actually thinks. And that's the thing. It's like it's not, the film is not trying to convince you to hate women, but it's about someone who does hate women, like real psychopaths tend to. And it's just very frank about that in a way that would never be done today, which is why when the remake was made, I thought, oh man, they're going to have to change all the subtext. They're going to have to soften things. And it's not the same film, but it does carry a real sense of mental illness, just like the original does, which is pretty brave and pretty amazing. And the fact that Elijah Wood clearly saw it as his baby to get to the screen and stars in the film, although in a very interesting way stars in the film, if you haven't seen it.
I'm always up for Elijah Wood playing a psycho.
He's one of those guys that...
I don't think it's that much of a stretch.
He's one of those guys that you never know what he's going to do next.
Yeah.
And Cliff says, best shotgun to the face I've ever seen on film. That is very true. If decapitation by shotgun is your thing, it's probably the best. And it's also Tom Savini shotgunning his own face, playing two different characters. So that's a thing.
That's amazing.
It is. Thoughts on Dead and Buried. Now, it's going to seem like I have all the props today, but I just got the adaptation of Dead and Buried.
Why are you tapping into the collective unconscious of the chat?
It's kind of crazy. And if you don't know, Chelsea Quinn Yarbrough was a huge horror writer in the 70s. She was one of and she's still working today. I mean, I don't mean to make it sound like she's gone, because she's not. But in the 70s, she was a major figure, major competitor in the early days of Stephen King, in fact, I would say. And the fact that she did a adaptation of the great Dan O'Bannon and Ron Shusett, I never pronounce his name right, screenplay, the guys who wrote Alien, also wrote this movie, and then she adapted it into a novel. It's kind of a perfect thing, right?
Yeah, it's very poetic.
It's great to see when, like, I don't know, real, I don't mean talent in a superficial way, but when real talent all kind of converge over ideas. It's kind of
Yeah.
beautiful. It's kind of beautiful. Yeah, no, I love the movie Dead and Buried. I think it has a good reputation, but no one ever seems to go out of their way to champion it as one of the best of its time period, and it probably deserves that. Probably deserves that.
Hmm.
Jay is in the chat, gives us
What
some
up?
devil horns. Jacob is saying his favorite shotgun to the face is in the green room. Very realistic. Pretty much what a 12 gauge blast would look like. I love green room.
Have you shot a lot of people?
That's a
Never
good
mind, don't
question.
answer that question. This is being recorded, so.
Just remember, Fins, don't bury bodies. It preserves them.
That's why we eat all of our problems.
Best bet is a large, not very well traversed wooded area. Say the Poconos or the Pine Barrens, upstate New York. Just leave the body. If no one finds it within 4 days, your vultures and your wildlife will take care of your problem for you in a way that cannot be traced back to you.
Can you narrow down the latitude and longitude for me, just in case?
158? No. Jess says Hannibal Rising was the last thing I dipped into with Lecter Thomas Harris stuff. That was so awful. I have no interest in Hannibal series or Clarice series.
I have to agree. I mean, I'll probably still watch Clarice, but Hannibal Rising, yeah, you're just. I know you need, you got to pay the bills, and you may as well write them if somebody else is threatening to write them instead. But yeah, Hannibal Rising was just a little dry for me. Don't really need that much of a backstory.
It took dialogue from the other books and just expanded them into a whole book. Why would you do that?
I don't know.
So Jacob is saying no, he has not shot people with a 12 gauge shotgun into the face, but he's seen photos of people who have been hit by 12 gauge blasts, and his sister is an EMT.
Your sister is awesome. Everybody appreciates her.
Your sister is doing great work that I could not do, that's for sure.
Indeed. Absolutely.
And the great Daniel Shine says Dead and Buried is an amazing film. It certainly is. And he also says that Clarice is Hannibal Light.
I don't know what they're going to do with Clarice because they've already gone through Hannibal. And, I mean, what, we're just going to be talking about Silence of the Lambs? We're just doing Buffalo Bill for the whole season? There is nothing there.
Yeah, I don't think they'll, I don't know. I don't think they'll get that far before it's canceled or out of the world. Let's see. Thoughts on 1 hour photo?
Yes. Saw it in the theater back in the day. One of my favorite Robin Williams performances. And also, if you notice, there's an action figure of the Evangelion the white things. I can't remember what those things are called. Help me out, guys. I know one of you weebs in the chat knows the white Avas, the Ava units. Fuck. I used to know this. They used to be like my favorite thing in Evangelion. Lawrence is like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Somewhere, I mean, I think my eye twitched and I completely lost the conversation.
Yeah. No, that's fine. That happens. Sometimes it's like subduction with your conscious and your unconscious. Like you'll be focusing on something and then your unconscious will just kind of like overlap and then just blank out. And I imagine it's probably the same if, when your eyes glaze over and you concentrate on something else other than what's happening.
Well, it's funny you say that because I was writing this morning and my writing, how I write, I'm not going to say writing process, but how I write is that I constantly think of my story when I'm showering, when I'm driving, anytime that I'm doing something that's rote and passive, so that by the time I sit down, I'm completely just putting it down, but the creation is already done. But because my eye was messing with me so bad, I was like completely losing myself, like where I was, and I had to do something very unusual, which is I deleted everything I wrote today and said tomorrow's another day because it was so bad. It was just so bad.
Yeah, I just flashed back to the whole thing about in Secret Window where Johnny Depp is just going, it's just bad writing, and it's just backspace. I still think about that. anytime I have to write something that I'm unhappy with.
Well, I'm never really happy until, which is why I just kind of pain myself over the same crap until I finally like wrangle it into some kind of shape where I can leave it. But whatever. I just usually don't have a problem getting stuff down. This morning it was just like I was like mid sentence. I'm like, I don't even know what the hell I'm writing anymore. I have no idea what this is. So I just highlighted it all, hit delete.
If it was important, it'll be in your head tomorrow.
That is exactly my viewpoint. That is exactly what I tell people. Because I hear about people talk about writing block all the time, and I just don't have it, because by the time I sit down to write, again, it's fully formed. And if you can't do that, if you can't just imagine your stories, that's not writer's block. That's something else going on, and you probably do want to see a doctor at that point.
That would be, I can't, okay, this is going to be bad. I can't imagine not being able to imagine things.
Right.
Speaking of imagine, I wanted to touch on one thing before I forget about Hannibal, before we move on from Hannibal, but I did really enjoy the portrayal of Will's active imagination that he uses as to put himself in the shoes of the killers. And that was, I thought that was portrayed really well on film, and I didn't think that would be possible. But fuck me, right? I mean, they did it.
Well, I think Manhunter does that well as well, by just having him talk to himself and talk in circles and kind of force himself to relive the experience from the treehouse and then moving into the house. And I thought that was a really successful way to do that scene. I thought Red Dragon did it a lot less successfully. The film Red Dragon did it a lot less successfully, but I think that's down to the performance. I know it's not popular to say, but you know what? It comes down to sometimes you need to not have like the preconceived notions about an actor for certain roles. Does that make sense?
So you're saying Ed Norton sucks?
No, I'm saying he's always Ed Norton.
Yeah. He belongs. He should only be allowed to be in Wes Anderson movies.
And I think that's, for a character like Will Graham, you need to be off center a little bit.
Yeah.
I mean, it couldn't be done today because we're too familiar with the actors since, but whatever. They're talking about lost films. I think I lost the. There you go, Dennis. If you could rescue one lost film, what would it be?
I feel like I've answered this question before, but I don't know. I'd still go with Event Horizon because I want those extra 40 minutes. Girl can dream.
To be honest with you, the problem is if you answer something like London After Midnight, which is what everyone says, it's grown mythological, but the film was not well received. People who saw it back then, including Forrest J. Ackerman, said it wasn't very good. So it becomes difficult. What I'd be really interested is to get all the Nickelodeon dime movies that were produced for the boardwalks back before theater exhibition was the mainstream. Where in the very early days of film, there was a number of basically one-act haunted house plays that were produced. And I don't mean there was a few. I mean there was hundreds of them made. And you'd go into a booth with a very limited number of people, and the movie would play, and you pay your dime. Your nickel, your penny, whatever that was, at the boardwalk in resort towns. And almost all of them are gone. And they are a foundation of horror that people like James Whale built on. And so, Dan, I know that's not literally the answer you want, right? But I
think it's more interesting, but
well, because we've lost an entire art form, because these were all like 8-minute films.
That's true, yeah. And I mean, what do we associate Nickelodeon with now? The TV channel.
Right.
Nobody knows what Nickelodeon is now. It's like 2020. It's 2021. Ask somebody on the internet what that is. They're going to just say the TV channel.
So Nico says, how do you know something you wrote is bad without letting it sit overnight? Have you ever regretted deleting something? So there's a bunch of different questions in there. Sometimes you just know. Sometimes you know when it's not working. Because I probably needed to do more mental work before I ever sat down, and I just feel like it's on thin ice. My writing is not flowery. My writing is very nuts and bolts, and that's by design. Because hopefully the psychology of the characters is the focus. The situations get layered on top of that, and I think that setting, character, and plot are all the same thing. I think we tend to think of them as separate things, and that's just us trying to pull apart the art. If it's working, they're all the same thing. And sometimes you realize that you're missing one of those components, and that's just going to end up being bad writing to me. Letting it sit overnight. Every morning when I open up my file when I'm working on a novel, which right now I'm working on short stories, so I'm not working on a novel. I reread what I wrote the previous day, and there's plenty of times when I end up rewriting more than get fresh writing in a day. So yes, sit overnight, you get fresh eyes on it, and usually you know what you have to do. Have I ever regretted deleting something? I've definitely regretted not saving things before the power goes out.
Yes. This.
But no, I can't say I really regretted deleting something, because again, anything really good, just as Sam said, stuck with me, and I eventually put it back in usually better form, because the more you do anything, the better it does get. Yeah. So if you write something 3 times, the third draft will be the best. Just because you won't make the mistakes you made the first 2 times, and it might. People get really worried, like, oh, I'm not gonna have the flow that I had going the original time. Like, that's all bullshit, writer crap. Don't listen to any of that shit.
Yeah, you do have, it is repetition, and that's really applied to anything. I mean, I'm studying Japanese right now, and I've been, trying to study at night, and it's literally repetition. Like, I was flunking the shit out of my quizzes, just completely bombing them, and then I just had to keep repeating the same fucking kanji and vocab over and over and over again, and I'm finally getting it to stick now. So just think of it that way. It's like you have to keep doing something. You may not like it, and it may be a little embarrassing because you think it's bad or you're not doing well at it, but if you just keep doing it more and more and more, eventually something will stick.
100%.
Yeah.
Nico's asking, would we like to see the 30 minutes MGM made Browning take out of Mark of the Vampire? To be honest with you, I don't love Mark of the Vampire. I mean, I respect it. I don't love it. I'm not sure if longer would make it better. If you're talking about missing scenes or reels, I'd love to see the Bride of Frankenstein murder plot back in the film, even though I think of it as a perfect film. I wouldn't mind seeing Dwight Frye's role restored. I also would love to see the missing reel of film that was lost out of Carnival of Souls. That would be fascinating to me. You see, people always talk about I want Friday 13 Part 7 restored. I'm like, there's films that have been hacked to pieces worse and are better films, right?
It's like you knew I was just going to segue into Nightmare on Elm Street 5 needs to be restored because I want all of my death scenes intact.
All right. So
as you were talking about all those great pieces of art, and I'm like, Nightmare 5!
Nightmare 5. Well, talk Nightmare 5. Go for it.
Yeah, I mean, I would just like to see the kills actually be, put into one cut of the movie. Where are all my special editions of each Nightmare on Elm Street movie with the deleted footage separately and or to watch as a whole cut? Where is it? I want that.
And the interesting thing is New Line actually was pretty good about preserving trims, so that that's more likely to be out there than anything like most of the other studios were doing at the time. So you might get your wish someday.
Maybe. We'll see. They better not try to reboot the series again. That's all I ask.
Then you don't want to be around next March.
They're not trying to reboot it. Stop lying. They're not. They're not. Stop it, Lauren.
I can show you something after the show's over, but I can't put it on the air.
Fuck. All right, fine.
No, you're gonna be even more disturbed. There's a discussion of hacks and witchcraft through the ages going on here. Dan is saying that Haxan is indeed perfect, and Jacob is saying it's a perfect film. Depends which version you're talking about, how much I like it. I do not like the Burroughs version, which is funny. We were talking about William Burroughs before the show too, so the audience was really listening.
I know. I feel embarrassed now.
Yeah.
Must be repeating myself a lot.
Note to self: make sure you wear pants before the show begins. I like Haxan. I don't love Haxan. I think it's really brave and for being what it is, and especially the time period it was made. But I never watch it. I mean, I've watched it 3 times in my life, and I just don't find myself reaching for it. So that's says more about me than the film, probably.
Haven't checked it out. Not really super, like, I'm not a witch movie connoisseur, except for maybe, like, I mean, I like the Vivitch. No, everyone likes the Vivitch.
Absolutely. What is your favorite depiction of a ghost in a horror film? For me, it's the Lady in Black from Cairo Tours. You talk about the basement scene, the red tape door scene, right? Where she does that awkward almost fall. That is a great one. But all of the 1989 British TV Woman in Black, any appearance of that ghost in that film, period.
I think Cairo is an excellent movie, and Pulse is a sad imitation of it. I really, really, really wanted to like that movie much more than I did. But Cairo is great. My favorite depiction of a ghost, I am really gonna have to go with probably Kayako from The Grudge. Takako Fuji is very disturbing. So it's just the way that she moves, and also the blank stare. It's still unsettling.
It's funny because I do prefer the television movie versions of the first 2 Ju-on films rather than the theatricals, although they're fine. They're good. Yeah. I think the first American film is fine. It's nothing since has been, in my opinion, but the television version of the story, although it's kind of identical in many ways, it just has a really unsettling, like cheap feel to it. But it's cheap is good in that case, whereas it feels a little more authentic because it feels like there was no bells or whistles.
After we got The Grudge, we had that J horror craze. Well, actually, it started with The Ring. Never mind. But
Ringo, yeah.
But then, and then The Grudge came out, and then it was just about J horror all over the place. And it led me down a lot of weird rabbit holes, like into the Tomie series, which I haven't. I know. And then I think I saw Eiko Eiko Azarok, like 2 of those movies. Just some of the strangest and coolest Japanese movies that I've ever seen. And then we tried to kind of like recreate that with One Missed Call, which was K-horror. And apparently I've never seen it, but it's got a 0% on Rotten Tomatoes.
It's bad. It's really bad.
Are we blaming Andrew Clavin for writing it?
No, we're blaming for everyone for even thinking it was an idea. That was
like it.
And it's even more frustrating because they could have remade Ghost Train, which came out the same year in Korea, and actually would have translated, but because that film didn't get some kind of home video release in America, it frustrates me when it's just the titles, not the stories that they want, and it's very obvious. Like, I know a lot of people love the American Ring film. I don't. I think it's cheap and convenient and does not have that spark of life that Ringu has. I think the Ringu trilogy, and no, I'm not including Ryzen in that, is brilliant. I think the second film is weaker than the first, but I think Ring Zero Birthday is amazing. And I just think the American films have always been, at best, kind of limply okay.
Yeah. It is what it is. We just need something authentic.
Authenticity matters, but that's why you can't force it. Like, as far as people keep talking about not that cultural appropriation is such a bad thing, then why do we keep getting remakes of foreign films?
Fuck if I know.
I'm not necessarily opposed to remaking a foreign film, but you'd think that would strike Hollywood as something not to do.
You would think, but I couldn't tell you what Hollywood's thinking because I don't think they're thinking.
So Jacob is saying that funny you should mention Woman in Black 89, the first horror film I ever saw, made me fall in love with the series. That is a great, great, great film that more people need to see. I think people know it by reputation more than by the actual experience of watching it. Nico's favorite ghost is in The Uninvited, a beautiful and haunting movie. Yeah, it's a very lyrical film. It's one of those films that was made at a time when you could care more about, spinning a story than the story itself, which is how you got a film like Supernatural with Carol Lombard. I put in a kind of similar vein, which is that movie is about the experience rather than any individual moment or story part.
Mm. That's true.
So Darren is also mentioning The Cat Creeps from 1930.
But that's how to get your attention in the chat. Just say 1930 something.
Oh my God, it is. So they know. I think they just know. They know how to push my buttons. Yeah.
Strangest OnlyFans in the world, man. How'd I get here?
I've said it before, but my people are the best. So The Cat Creeps, over the years, there's been rumors of a Russian print, which it's not a rumor that doesn't exist about other lost films. It exists for a lot of films. But maybe someday we'll get it. But it's like me and 3 other people who care, I think. So. Oh, and Nico's saying, thanks for turning me on to Supernatural. Thanks. Yeah, hopefully, Nico, you picked up that remastered Blu-ray too, because that's a beautiful, beautiful disc. Dude, Jacob saying, cultural appropriation is a pretty niche concern. Hardly anyone cares about that shit. I hope so. If Hollywood wants to generate cash flow, they do whatever it takes to do that. How about...
I agree.
You know what would be the ultimate way for Hollywood to make money? Start adapting really great novels from the last 50 years. Because the story's already good. It seems so easy.
It's not like we're running out of ideas. There are plenty of great ideas out there.
Pet Sematary 2 is coming.
Stop it.
Seriously.
You can't touch the original Pet Sematary 2. No, that is a hot mess, and I love it.
Well, so the limited information about it seems to be it's going to be a lot more about the Wendigo than anything else. So, which may be a good way to go. I don't know. Although that was another film where the entire press release about Paramount making it for Paramount Plus was all about the fact that they sought out a female director for it.
Oh fuck.
And I'm like, okay, she might be exactly the right director, and I want to see what she does. Great. But that's not how you search out people. Can you imagine any other profession doing this? It'd be illegal.
I'm done. I am like, if I hadn't seen Saint Maud, I'd probably be like, oh, another horror movie by a female director? Nope, not watching it. Fuck you. And I'm a feminist. I am not a support all other women feminist, though. Like, you better give me something good. Don't just shit something out like Shadow in the Cloud. Jesus Christ, Roseanne Liang.
Well, remember.
Holy fuck. Sorry, I went off on a tangent there for a second. I'm just really tired of bad horror films getting spotlight because they have a female director and writer to them. I don't care. I don't care about your fucking pussy. Give me a good story. Don't give me shit like Black Christmas.
Hey, remember, Eva Braun was a lady too.
She sure was. I was not expecting that.
I think it's one of those things that I do understand why people would come to the belief that having different viewpoints is so important that you actively seek them out. I get it, but I also think like we need to look at the final product, make sure we get what we want. We don't want Shadow in the Cloud, right? No. Because that does nothing good for representation. It does exactly the opposite. Sure, Jennifer Kent, Babadook, awesome.
Great story. Great story.
Awesome. I'm all for it. And it's nothing new. I mean, unfortunately, Hollywood was worse than publishing was about female voices in the past. Absolutely true. I just want good stuff. I don't care who produces it, which is why I've pretty much given up on Hollywood.
If I ever get my act together and ever produce anything artistic, I'm just going to go by a male pen name. Just full on Bronte.
A lot of I know a lot of female writers in the horror genre who go by initials just to keep things kind of translucent at best. I don't think that that's necessary. I mean, in my opinion, two of my three favorite novels from last year came from female horror writers. I don't see a stigma necessarily. If the sales aren't there right now, the sales will be there if this level of quality remains. So whatever is holding people back, beat them by being the best, because that's the only way you really win anyway.
Yeah, I think it's more of an issue with movies right now because we've, as you've mentioned many times, we've had great female authors for fucking forever. So I don't think it's that. I think it's movies. It's fucking Hollywood. This is why I'm never going to get anywhere doing anything that requires me to talk about movies.
Well,
I don't care. I'm just here to bitch.
Well, every once in a while, someone will call me a name. It happens. But I don't think that my viewpoints are extreme in any respect. I just want good stuff. I want good stuff that helps the genre get bigger, and I want as many voices from as many different backgrounds as possible producing good stuff.
Yeah.
But there's a common theme there if you didn't pick up on it. Nico is saying that Spider-Woman Strikes Back is coming out from Kino, so we have all but one Rondo Hatton title with the Brute Man, which is his signature role, and Nico is celebrating. I agree. Rondo Hatton was one of those actors that you could look at as having been exploited during the golden era, but on the other hand, his body of work is still alive and vibrant today. And so many actors who were not quote unquote exploited are all but forgotten. So who's to say? Who is to say? Ty West is doing a horror film about the porn industry with A24. Thoughts?
I'm down.
I'm good with A24 doing whatever A24 think we need.
Yes, 100%. Especially if it's like something like, you're giving me Ty West. I'm like, okay. Oh, yeah, it's about porn? All right, let's do this. Let's see what happens.
Because you can't imagine it from the outside, right? And that's exciting.
Yeah, I have no idea what that could be. I'm just like, I'm here for it.
Oh, wait, before we do that, can you imagine a Ty West Star Wars film?
It gives a new meaning to TIE fighters.
It would be like all take place in one location. There'd only need to be one subtitle ever.
Is that what the movie's going to be like?
Probably. Bedroom. It'd be int.bedroom. Dan says, as far as Hollywood goes, I think changing pre-existing characters dramatically to make a point is killing the business. I don't know if it's killing the business, but it's not a good move. The thing is, characters are not created arbitrarily if it's inside a good piece of art. They're created as what they are for a reason. And when you start to mess with that, you change the fundamental meaning behind the art, which maybe you're okay with. But it also leads me to think, like, why didn't you create your own thing at that point?
I think it's a really big problem for comics. We have, it feels, it's like, hey, we want to have more diversity in comics, but instead of actually focusing on established characters that, hey, we could, talk about this character more. We're just getting really dumb shit like making, Black or Latino versions of existing properties when I think we want new properties, new ideas.
Well,
That's my frustration.
Do you think it's because they're so fearful that if a new character with a different demographic fails, that it quote unquote, harms the movement?
No, I think it's just easy, and it's easier to use something that's already there than having to think up an original idea. So
I also think
I think it's laziness, really.
I also think that there's something to be said about the fact that these characters, in some cases, that have been existing since the 1920s, 30s, in more recent cases, the 50s, 60s, 70s, maybe there's an expiration date on them. Maybe at the point where you're thinking about fundamentally changing them that much, pretty much they've exhausted their utility.
I'm just trying to think of the last comic character that was iconic enough to leave an imprint on its own. What would I don't know if chat has any suggestions here. But the last iconic character that stood on its own that wasn't based on an existing property. And I know it's not really horror related, but we overlap in our nerdiness.
I'm probably wrong because I don't follow comics that closely and I only pretty much read horror comics, but I'd say like Hellboy was what, early 90s? When you talk about characters of the stature that they're going to make movies about.
Yeah. I mean, Hellboy. Actually, I mean, yeah. Trying to think of who else. Spawn. Fuck.
That's the same
these
period.
These are all, and I'm pretty sure Hellboy. Yeah, Hellboy is not in either of the big two. Maybe it's an issue with the big two then.
Well, again, I think that unless you're talking about superheroes, you don't really get character-driven stuff from comics. You get like story-driven stuff too, so that's probably not helping.
Yeah.
Yeah. But again, I'm kind of out of my depth.
I think it's just my general malaise and frustration with the lack of creativity in a lot of the big parts of mainstream fandom, whether it's fucking horror movies, comics, wrestling, whatever.
I agree, but I think that's exclusively an American problem, which is why I get frustrated when I go to see a film that's not from this country. I tend to have a good time with it, and I tend to feel like I watched something. I mean, there's exceptions that in this Earth, in the Earth movie, that the British Irish production, awful, but you know what, awful, but it felt like something though. So there you go.
Yeah. I'm still deciding if I'm going to go for that. I might.
There's some good gore effects, but the film is it's not good. You might like it. Cool. I'm glad if you do. But
I'll make Chris watch it with me. He makes like bad movies enjoyable.
That's an important function. Why I married him. That's an important function of any relationship.
Indeed. Because how do you get through life together if you can't learn to suffer together and have a good sense of humor about it?
Exactly, because at some point you're going to have to deal with the other person having been through a surgery and can't do shit for themselves. So at least if you've already developed the gallows humor of bad experiences through movies, you'll be okay.
Oh yeah, my mother-in-law had breast cancer surgery last October, and they did the reconstructive surgery like right after they did the main surgery. So they had to remove one of her breasts, and it was sort of like there was a period of time, a very small period of time, and I told her, I'm like, there's a small period of time where I can actually tell you to calm your tit, but after that, no. And she got a good laugh out of that.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, I have great in-laws.
So, let me ask, Sam, how would you feel about next week throwing open the floodgates for a community show on Wednesday?
Yeah. What are we doing?
So, community shows, we haven't done one since, I think, December? Might be before that. The concept is we put the link in the chat and we let our community come on in and talk to us face to face.
That's awesome. I'm down. Let's do it.
We've had pretty good times. There's one very infamous show where things kind of went off the rails, but other than that, we've been very lucky. But what I am saying, guys, is you all are welcome into the community shows. Obviously, you have to have your camera on, and you must make yourself seen before I'll let you in. And we will continue to talk about horror. It could be films, books, comics, whatever. But we're actually gonna talk about that. I know some other areas of the community are a little bit embrace some other things that we don't embrace, but we're gonna still talk genre. You down, Sam?
Of course I am.
Awesome. It'd be nice to see you guys again. It's been a long time since we did a community chat. I'm gonna put a link. I'll put the link in the thumbnail up probably in a couple days, and we'll get together. And then as we go into the new month, we're going to have a slew of guests coming on board the show, as well as we'll do another one of these just talking genre. And if you guys behave, we'll probably maybe make the community shows a thing again.
I'm going to have to hear all... I'm going to have to make you spill all the tea about that. Someday, Sam, someday I'll be on the screen. We'll see, Laundry. We'll see.
Okay, so I think I'll set that for next Wednesday at 8 p.m. And anything else you need to talk about to the peoples, Sam?
No, I just... How do you solve a problem like Hannibal? Just eat it.
Just eat it. You know what
thinking? How do you solve a problem like Maria for the rest of the night?
I do want to thank everyone who reached out to make sure I was safe after my alligator encounter. And as an update, I transferred him to a smaller container.
What the?
He has gotten about 2.5 times his original size, and he's super deformed.
Yeah.
But this is after now 8 days, and he's supposed to get 600 times his original size. Not looking good for that to happen.
You really just need to put a camera on him and do a time lapse.
I can
the channel specifically for the alligator. It'll just be a constant live stream. You can just watch it expand.
No, because Chuck is already talking about unionizing, and I can't have you guys unionize. That can't happen. So
yeah, you don't want cooperation.
He's going to stay in the water. That's all there is to it. All right. So I want to thank all you guys out there in the chat. Jess, Laundry, Griffin, Dan, Jacob. Who else has been very vocal? Jay the Stingray is out there. Big Crack Rock. Captain Halloween. Darren Burrows. Nico. Did I say Nico? Or Brian Trash was out there. I'm missing people. I know I am, but I can't scroll back after a certain point. Cliff Booth, who started off the night talking about shotgun blasts to the face and his heroic sister. So I want to thank all you Rock Music Forever, championing the Maniac remake, and Griffin, of course, our good friend Griffin, who's been on the show. Thank you all for joining us tonight. This has been a lot of fun. We did an hour and a half. It felt like 10 minutes, as usual.
That was fun.
Always. All right. Have a good one. We'll see you next week, where we will see you next week. Be good.
Okay, bye.